The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right.
Yeah, now even I need to go.
Okay. Okay. I think we are online now. Sorry about the delay, folks. I was just trying to sort a few things here, and I hope you guys can see my screen. All right. Let's just get started in a sec. All right. Okay. So, if you could, any one of you can confirm if you can see my screen. If you can put something in the chat window, please. There has been some technical glitches earlier, so I hope you can hear me and see my screen. All right. Okay, I guess, well, I haven't seen any response yet, but I believe you're all able to see that. All right. Um, Sorry for the delay again, and welcome to this webinar on Disciplined Agile. My name is Rahul Gujar. I'm an Agile practitioner, been practicing Agile for the last 10 years, and more than 20 years now in the industry. And welcome again to this webinar on Disciplined Agile. Now, before we get into the new concepts of what disciplined agile is all about, yeah, I mean, let us empty our cups. Probably you know the story, right? It's about a professor who traveled to east, right? I mean, he went to Japan. He wanted to get more about what Zen is all about, and he comes and meets one of the Zen masters in the Meiji era. And he says, okay, I want to learn, or I want to know about Zen. And he is offered a cup of tea, and the master keeps on pouring the cup of tea, right, until it's full, and it in fact overflows, right? I think in one of the movies also we have seen this, I think 2012, where so we are so full of things, we are so full of ideas that it doesn't leave any space for any new thing to learn, right? And that's one of the reasons I feel we should all empty our cups at this point, and maybe look at disciplined agile as one of the agile toolkits, agile frameworks, from a completely new perspective. All right. And having said that, what is disciplined agile? It's been there in the market since 2012. In fact, even before that, Scott Ambler, Mark Lyons, were the co-creators of disciplined agile. It's been there, and it's uh, recently disciplined agile got taken over by PMI. That was August of last year. And disciplined agile, if you look at it, it actually provides you with a tool set of strategies, proven strategies throughout many years of experience. It's not about those two chaps. It's a contribution from the disciplined agile community as well. And you will see that it's as we go along in today's webinar, you will get a feel of that it is not something very prescriptive. It's a kind of an agnostic approach towards agile, an enterprise based approach, so it can be applied not only at the team levels but even scaled up to all the other levels. And as we go along, you will also understand that it does talk about certain principles. There are 7 principles which disciplined agile believes. But all in all, the reason behind companies and organizations adopting to DA is one of the reasons I would say is prescriptive frameworks possibly work to a certain extent, right? I mean, uh, there have been these are all the prescriptive network frameworks that you can see, right? Most of the times you'll see companies starting with Scrum, right? Scrum, Kanban goes like the basic things when people try to get into agile world, right? and over a few years of time, maybe they want to scale up. So I think if you look at safe scaled agile framework, it's been also there in the market for quite some time, one of the leaders when it comes to scaling, right? But then there are others also, right? Nexus, less, scrum at scale, these are all the things which a lot of teams, a lot of units, business organizations, they're trying to adopt, and absolutely there's no harm with that, but there comes a time where especially when they start with any kind of new adoption with any of the agile frameworks, any of the agile methods, you can say, right? Always goes like an the S curve or the hockey stick, right? So you start with waterfall, or the traditional way of doing things, non-agile way of doing things, and initially definitely you will see a dip in whatever we are doing, trying to understand or learn these new processes. But over a period of time, they do get to see benefits, right? From Scrum, Kanban, Safe, whatever the framework they've thought of adopting. But there comes a point in the life cycle of adoption where, these prescriptive frameworks and methods, they plateau out. You know, they get stuck. They feel that, okay, what more can we do, right? And we always feel that there have been companies, if you look at the Microsofts of the world, the Netflixes of the world, right? They have been doing agile for quite some time, and they have been very successful at it. And yes, what they do in if you look at what's the common factor around it, and as we also say in agile, we say that we have to be adaptive, right? We have to be flexible, we have to go and look at new things, right? And that's where they try to do continuous improvements, using some of these Kaizen loops that you would have seen, right? So, you hit a problem, you identify that problem, and you say, okay, excuse me, what are the potential solutions that we could possibly have for this problem, right? And there could be many, many, many solutions around it. And, in most likelihood, you go around picking one of the solutions and say, okay, let's try to do this. Okay, let's see how far it goes, how far it takes us, or maybe it's effective. Some solutions maybe working for maybe a similar domain or a similar company, and that's where they adopt it, right? And yeah, maybe sometimes it works, yeah, that adoption works, sometimes it doesn't work, you know and more often we always say, right, okay, fine, if it doesn't work, don't lose heart, right? Go and try another things, try other solutions. Yeah, there's absolutely no harm doing this, the continuous improvement loops. But failing fast is fine, but succeeding early is better, I mean, yeah, I mean, we all want to be, like, all right, okay, failures are pillars of success, and it's okay to fail, yeah. But the kind of world we live in, we want to succeed early as well, right? And that's where we would like to possibly take a little one step ahead, one step earlier, in terms of what possible solutions could be, right? And we want to probably pick up the right solution at that point in time, right? It's all probably, again, maybe in terms of improvements of what the prescriptive frameworks are not offering at this point. So we try to improve on that, identify some potential solutions, right? But if we can do this with some guidance, with some possibly some coaches around you, yeah, and you'll see, you know organizations go and hire coaches, I mean, they're absolutely required in some cases, because they bring in a lot of knowledge, right? But of course, they're costly, they're expensive sometimes, right? And that's where what we feel is, something around a disciplined agile toolkit could possibly help, you know because it actually provides with you a very rich knowledge base around processes, around, and we have a concept of process goals and process blades, so it's very goal driven, it's very it's what do you say, it's more of competencies that you need to build, right? And you will see that where exactly it helps, because especially when it comes to this guided improvements, you will certainly see, with this guided improvement which the toolkit provides, the disciplined agile toolkit provides, you know you will have more chances of success in what you do. And yes, I mean, you will say that, Yeah, I mean, this is not what the Scrum prescribes, or this is not what Kanban, or whatever framework that is given prescribes. And a lot of times we try to force fit. We try to force fit that that a prescriptive method into something that it has never worked for you before, right? So we need some guidance, and that's where DA comes in. That's one of the value propositions of DA. So it does believe on these 7 principles, with delighting customers right right at the center of it. We all do things for because we want to delight customers. We all want teams which are awesome teams, right? And they don't become awesome on day one. It's through this learning, and a guided learning, and through this toolkits, right? So you need like you're going on a war, right? So you just can't just go with a gun, right? I mean, you need all different kind of toolkits with you, and that's what make a person awesome. So yes, we want our teams to be awesome, but at the same time we want to take a pragmatic approach. Let's see what context we are in, and based on that context, what do we and even of course in the given amount of time, right? What can we do best, right? And that's where you require a lot of choices. And we feel choice is good. Yeah, I mean, you should have choices to work with, and you should see that, okay, which choice could possibly work for us in a given context, right? And it can be applied not just at the team levels, even at the even at the value stream level, you can say, right? Where we talk about flows, end-to-end flows, value streams, as we say, right? So always we are trying to optimizing the flow and be enterprise aware. So yes, we need to be team aware, but also what are the strengths, right? What are the SWOT analysis if you have done at an enterprise level or even at a unit level? What is it that we can do better, right? So be enterprise aware. So these are some of the principles which DA believes in. And it's also about people who are going to get this process and get some of the tool sets and toolkits going, and helping teams in terms of bettering their way of agile journey, right? Agile adoption, right? It's also about the flows. We have different life cycles. We'll be introducing to some of those in this webinar today. I'm going to talk about some of those, right? But there are more, as you will see, and the workflows, because each project, each team is unique, right? And that's where it may not happen that a particular life cycle may fit everything. You may require multiple life cycles to go with, right? So we'll look at some of the life cycles today, and as I said, it's very goal driven. We do have a concept of process blades, right? So that's what builds our mindset. And if you look at it, right, when it comes to the people who would be doing some of the things which DA prescribes, which DA talks about, right? We do have a concept of team leads, and this is the reason behind this is we want it to be as agnostic as possible. Yeah, I mean, in the agile world we do talk about a scrum master, and probably that's one of the most widely used term today, isn't it? I mean, scrum masters. But in a lot of cases, maybe it's an agile coach for certain teams, right? So if taken a team lead, which where you will see that sometimes people who are currently doing team lead kind of role, when they move into agile, maybe they don't want to call themselves as scrum masters, fine, I mean, that's why we felt your team leads, product owners, architecture owners, these are some of the roles. Now these are some roles which we believe are required even at the team level. The product owners, right, who is defining the vision and scope, your architecture owners. Every team possibly needs an architecture owner, or someone who can define some architecture for the team. Technical leads, you can say, right? But we call them as architecture owners, who can help others in the team on technical priorities and technical risks, right? And of course then we have the team members, our developers, testers, sysadmins, all the our technical folks, right, you can say. And we are all working towards a customer, but we want to extend it beyond, customer still looks, very narrow focused, I would say, like a stakeholder is a better term, where you say that it's not always an end customer, sometimes you have internal customers, which, we call it as stakeholders, right? So yes, all the things that we are doing are for our stakeholders, isn't it? So these are some of the roles which DA brings to the table. And there's a lot of learnings which DA has taken from even other frameworks, like as you can see, safe DevOps, even the very old ones, old frameworks like extreme programming, unified process, and there are really, some good information, even in those old methods. It's not that, yeah, I mean, of course, Scrum has been there for since, early 90s, you can say, right? I mean, it's been there for quite some time, and it has, definitely worked, especially for new teams in Agile. It has really worked well, but what about others? So if you're following Scrum or if you're following Kanban, should we just ignore all others? Definitely not, right? I mean, we want to pick up the best from some of these and see, if it can be applied in the context that we are in, right? And that's why, it's more of a, you can say, like DA is, it's a kind of a hybrid approach, right? Because it takes the best of all others, which we have been doing, and even the old ones, right? And this is where we talk about process blades. And for any of the any organization, there's a huge push these days on business agility, right? We have heard about business agility, we have heard about organizational agility, and we all understand to an extent that this agility cannot be done, alone by our IT teams, alone by our developers and testers. It's just not possible, right? Especially when you're building solutions which are enterprise level solutions. It requires a concerted effort of all different teams, all different groups, you can say, right? We need people from finance, security, right, procurement sometimes, yeah, marketing, strategy, all such things are required. And this is where we believe that, process blades help. And what are these process blades? Process blades will give you tremendous information on, you want to go and improve something. Let's say, for instance, you want to go and improve around data management, right? You can go and look at that process blade, and there are a lot of what do you say, a lot of good ideas, on what you should apply and when you should apply. Yeah, when it could work well, when it couldn't work well, but before we go to the process goal, I'm going to share, talk about a bit on the process blades and process goals. But if you look at it, this is the onion square, ring of DA, right? Where you'll see that right at the bottom we have the disciplined agile DAD, right? And in fact, if you look at the latest one, there's going to be a small change in that, not too much of change, but a little bit of change there. But um, this is where we talk about these different life cycles. So in any given context, maybe agile works, the standard scrum life cycle, which we call it as an agile life cycle, yes, maybe it works. But in some cases, maybe lean is more relevant, right? An exploratory life cycle, or if you're working with multiple teams, a program kind of life cycle. But beyond that, if you look at it, we have this kind of these 4 different layers. So we have disciplined DevOps. DevOps is a very big thing these days. I mean, it's been there in again, for quite a number of years. But we need guidance around it. How we should do it. And of course, going up a little ahead, you'll see DAIT and DAE, Disciplined Agile Enterprise. Right. So just to give you a flavor of what does data management goal could look like. So yes, and if we want to do data management, yeah, maybe you want to improve on your data quality, maybe you want to improve on your data assets, security, structures. And what we have, what DA has given is, where we can start with, when we want to improve data quality. Yeah, possibly, yeah, maybe you may look at ETL, you may look at, the database regression testing, refactoring. The ones which we have highlighted in bold is something which we feel that are, what do you say, most preferred way of doing things, right? And again, if you go and drill down on each of these, you'll get information around what it means, what you should do. Like for instance, let me show you another goal here, which is about exploring scope, right? So yeah, I mean, we have our product owners, maybe you're working in the Scrum world, maybe I've just adopted to Agile for quite some time, maybe a few months or years have gone down, and I mean, we are doing everything that is required for capturing the customer needs. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, people have been working on user stories, right? I mean, maybe they have implemented epics, user stories, great, yes, I mean, but then even with all such things, when some teams have done some retrospectives and they say that, hey, you know what, I think we are still not able to understand our customer needs. What further can we do, right? Yeah, and this is where yeah, I think maybe let's take a look at what DA has to offer, right? And yeah, I mean, we are talking about how we can explore the needs of the customers, so explore usage. Oh, you know what, personas, I think this is something which we haven't done, and I think something which is kind of done in some other places. Why don't we give it a try? All right, fine. So let's look at personas. And for personas, again, we DA provides you with a lot of usage, or what we say, in what cases it will work, and maybe some what are the trade-offs, when you try to do that. So you'll get some guidance around it. This is what we are calling about, a guidance-based approach, a guidance-based improvement. So it will tell you, like personas. Yes, I mean, it's a technique which is widely used, for empathizing with your customers and so on and so forth, right? And I think you get the idea, right? So as you can see, it was just about exploring, the scope, or the exploring the usage from a customer perspective. And as you can see, if you look at the explore scope, yeah, there's so many additional things to that, right? From a process, from UI. So yeah, I mean, uh, the core, the crux here is, it's giving you a toolkit, where you can apply it, not just for our technical side of things like data modeling which we saw, right, but also from a process perspective, so it's pretty rich that way. And you know when it comes to DA, right, we believe some of these life cycles, like Agile life cycle, or the Kanban life cycle, or the lean life cycle, you can say, right? There's always a, we do believe in phases. DA does believe in phases. So we do, we do feel that, we get into an inception phase where, sometimes when we are just starting with the Agile process, we are forming teams. And as you can see, again, forming team is a kind of a process goal. So what you should do when you are having distributed teams, what you should do when you should have co-located teams, and so on and so forth, so there's a lot of guidance around it again, right? So some of the things on around inception, what you should be doing during construction, right? And what possibly you should do during the transition, or when you are putting things in production and releasing it. And of course, what are the ongoing ones, ongoing goals that you should achieve, right? So as I said, it's we do talk about phases, and each of these phases we have milestones, a milestone based approach. Milestones are required because unless you are really clear about, yes, we have met the milestone, yes, I think we have achieved, or able to probably do what is expected as part of that milestone. Like if you look at it, right, I mean, in inception, yeah, I mean, stakeholder vision, do we understand the vision, do we agree to that strategy and vision, right? And that's important for the entire team to know. And similarly, you have some things in construction and transition and so on. So we do have, we first of all, we feel there are phases, and for each of these phases there should be some milestones to achieve, and continuously keep on adapting and improving on those milestones. Now I'd like to take a moment to go through some of the life cycles, which DA is introducing. Yes, Agile has been there for quite some time, and as you can see here, looks quite familiar, look quite similar to to our Agile, to our Scrum process, right? So you have an iteration backlog, and again, we try to be a bit agnostic here. We don't want to call it as a sprint backlog, because if you really think of it, you just can't sprint, isn't it? I mean, you just can't keep sprinting, isn't it? I mean, sprint is something where you are running fast, you tend to make mistakes sometimes. Yeah, so again, it's like an iteration backlog, and the one which you see in the middle is something which probably you're familiar with the Scrum world, right? But yeah, I mean, yes, there is no, we do believe this, we do agree that there is no concept of sprint zero. Yeah. But we do certain things for even starting with the sprints, and that's what we are talking about as inception. Yeah. And not all the teams are able to go and deploy in production every iteration. I mean, that's the reality, guys. I mean, I know, we do talk about, yes, we want to achieve that, we want to meet that, but what about today? Right? So today we are doing that. What is it that we should do? And maybe in a regulatory environment, or maybe some of those teams are not able to release everything in production. So yes, then there will be some kind of transition activities. Yeah. But then you may say that, yeah, I mean, you know what? We are a bit mature. Okay. I mean, we have been doing agile for quite some time. Yeah. Great. Maybe what we believe is, such teams could then go and try to adopt a continuous delivery lean lifecycle. And as you can see here, now here in this case, we don't necessarily have a inception phase and a transition phase, you know, which is what we have been made to believe, that you start the work, and you have a potentially shippable increment, and you kind of try to deploy that into production and all. I mean, be honest, I mean, how many times, or just look around, I mean, how many times have we been able to do that? Have we really been able to deploy in production and turn it on for our customers? Right? Well, if you have achieved that kind of maturity, fantastic, and that's where we are talking about a lean life cycle. So this, we do believe that, DA says that, yeah, I mean, you start somewhere, I mean, and just don't go by what do you say, a very prescriptive way. Yeah, maybe you want to improve on certain things. Yeah. And then at some point in time, you probably get into a lean life cycle kind of a model, where you are doing continuous delivery. Yeah. And maybe it helps. Yeah, I mean, we do also have a life cycle for business teams. We have all been talking about agile can be done even for the non-IT teams, right? And to be honest with you, I mean, if I just look at the the Scrum manifesto, I mean, I get confused. I mean, I sometimes feel that you know delivery software over comprehensive documentation. I mean, how can a business team think about a software delivery? So the point here is, sometimes we can't simply follow what is given, and yeah, maybe a new approach is required. So yes, we do have some business service life cycles as well, right? And of course, with the acquisition of DA by PMI, they also went and took over Al Chalove's company, DA Flex, right? And that is actually, so now at this point, they're doing a bit of an integration between how we can apply DA principles and DA values at a value stream level, at a portfolio level in SAFe. You can see those who are looking at SAFe, then that's the portfolio level for us, and how it can be done. So yeah, I mean, as you can see, the onion rings which I showed earlier, it does have kind of a scaling kind of an a model, you can say, right? What is at the team level, and what is possibly at the at the enterprise level. So yes, I mean, there is some guidance around value stream. In fact, PMI at this moment in time, they are coming up with a completely new course for value stream, value stream consulting, you know. So there is still some things being worked out around this part. And I've been talking about DA toolkit, and there's a great book that PMI and DA has come out very recently. Yeah, it's called as Choosing Your Way of Working, and I think that's what we want, right? I mean, we would like to be adaptive. We would like to choose how we want to work, and that's I mean, as I said, Scrum, Safe, all these things. Yes, yeah, I mean, they are good start. They're good starting points. But what about when you want to improve further? So maybe you may want to look at this book a little in a little further, and this actually gives you a lot of information around the process blades, around the process goals, right? And I mean, as I've given some guidance around what those goals and how you should be looking at that, right? I mean, the personas that we talked about, right? So uh, and these process blades are there at all levels, not just at the team level, at the program levels, at the value stream level, enterprise level. So yeah, I mean, this is a book, I think it's probably going for around close to around $20 or something, so those who are currently working as agile coaches, I think this is a great book to have in your toolkit. All right. So yeah, I think with that, I think at this point I'm going to take a pause, more of an overview of DA, as you would have guessed by now, right? And I would like to open for any questions that you have on whatever you have seen so far.
Yes, thank you so much, Rahul. I'd firstly like to, let all the attendees know that we had some technical glitch, which is why we had a couple of minutes delay. Thank you so much to all of you for waiting and being patient with us and not dropping off in those few minutes. And I would like to specifically mention that the presenter for today is Rahul Gujar. However, he had to log in from Nikhil Raj's account because of the technical glitch. So please take note of his name. This is a temporary email ID he's logged in with. And Rahul, if you could, is there a screen you can share your email ID? I think it'd be great for them to. Yeah. So this is the name. Yeah. And now we'll be happy to take any questions that you all have. We have about 20 minutes for questions in case you all have any. Or you can all start typing in your questions into the question box. Yeah, so Rahul, we have the first question, which is the process blade which you were showing tool.
Yep. Could you please repeat that question? I couldn't get it.
Yeah, so there's someone who's asking the process blade which you were showing, is that a tool?
Okay. It's not a, it's, we would like to refer to that as a toolkit. It's not a tool in itself. It's, each of the process, the reason behind process blades, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you have worked or you have ever been to a data center, so, in data center, you have all these different machines and racks and servers, right? I mean, and you will see that, okay, maybe, some of the servers, you want a different function, you want something new to happen, as part of that switch or that router that you have. And, you kind of, just slot in a blade, so a blade is like a new functionality, you can say, right? Now this toolkit, the process blades that we refer to here are, again, a lot of guidance around, what particular part of that process you want to improve. So if you say that, okay, we have, process blades around finance, for example. Okay, I'm just taking an example of a non-IT. I think some of the things I've already showed you for data model or data modeling, or even for the exploring scope, that was one of the process blades, right? So these process blades will actually help you to, gather a lot of information, in particularly looking at, for that process, what part of that process you want to improve further, right? And then you will see on the right hand side there are a lot of techniques, which they have given. So if you want to improve on this process, these are some of the techniques. And for each of the techniques, what are the trade-offs? So if you do something like this, some other things you should expect to happen. So it's not like, we always believe that, there is no concept called as best practices. They're like good practices. Like, just because, it has worked for someone in some context, they feel that it is best for them, but for someone else it may not work, just as, as it's been documented. So that's why, we have also given some trade-offs, that, in certain things it may not work. All right, so just look at it as more of a toolkit, an understanding, and, getting to know what you can do in as part of that process.
Great, thanks, Rahul. The next question is, so It's actually a follow-up from the same person who says he had seen similar kind in Kubernetes implementation done through DevOps. And
In
he
Kubernetes.
wants to put the question. Yes.
Kubernetes,
And
yes.
he also says that I will put a question in a different way. Process Blades is the tool. What is in Agile? It's not a very clear question, but Rahul, would you make
Yeah, I
anything
think.
out of it? He said,
Yeah, I think,
yeah,
see, I mean, if you look at Kubernetes, right, it's all about what do you say, containerization, right? So you can Docker, all the people are using as containers. You do use Kubernetes because then you can actually spawn containers, on any kind of environment, isn't it? I mean, that's the whole idea behind, orchestrating those containers as well using Kubernetes. So, I mean, this is here in this case, what we're saying is it could possibly help you to improve on what you're currently doing. So let's say you started with safe, or you probably started with safe, scrum or safe, right? And you've been doing it for quite some time, and now you want to you've kind of hit that plateau. If you remember that the continuous guidance which we said, and you had hit a plateau and you said, okay, what further we can do, how further we can improve, right? That's where I would say that you may want to look at this toolkit and try to apply some of these again. So it's not yeah, I mean, if you compare with, what you're referring to as Kubernetes, yeah, like more of an agnostic, you can go and apply to anything, yeah, right? Safe, Scrum, Nexus, whatever. Yes, I mean, in that case, it could be a great analogy that way. I hope that answers your question.
yeah, great. At what stage can we decide that we are ready for DA?
Oh, okay. Well, as far as DA is concerned, it can very well be taken up by any teams who are completely new to Agile. I mean, there's a lot of, again, there's a lot of guidance around those life cycles, which I just gave you a kind of a brief, right? So depending on your context, you can just pick and choose and say that, okay, I think this is what probably, we are more closer to this particular lifestyle and go with it. So that's why one of the great things is you're not like okay, I'm a hardware team, for example. Okay, I'm a team which works on embedded systems and I only know Scrum. So all right, fine, let's go with Scrum and let's see what we can do. May not work for you. Yeah, maybe you may want to look at some of the lean concepts. Maybe a lean life cycle could possibly work, maybe. I'm just telling you. So you may have to, it can work even for completely new teams in Agile world, right? And it can also work with those who have already adopted to some of these existing methods, right? So DA is now is they're currently working on coming up with a playbook for safe. Playbook for safe means, okay, let's say you are doing safe for quite some time and you're not getting the right results. So why don't you just have a look at what DA has to provide as part of their safe playbook. And yeah, you don't necessarily need to discard safe. Yeah, keep doing that, fine. But see what DA has to offer, and maybe it can improve your current way of things.
Yeah, thanks, Rahul. We have one question related to certification. So we have Kavaskar saying, I'm already a member of DA. Can you
Mhm.
please let me know how I can take up different certifications in DA?
All right, okay, great question. Because as I said, the recent acquisition by PMI, right? As far as I know, they're doing some changes in terms of certifications. They should be, I think, probably by end of this month, they should be done with it. Because I attended a session by Scott a few days back, and they're pretty much kind of done with it. You should see some guidance around that as well, in terms of certifications. But in my opinion, if I assume that probably you have done a DAD kind of a certification before, disciplined agile, disciplined agilist. And there are different there are other certifications which you can think about. So we have a disciplined agile practitioner, or a DLSM, right? That could be your next step. And the other ones, DA coach, disciplined agile coach, I think that has. But of course, unless you achieve your next, you can't really go and directly go for a coach or become a the other, like for example, they have a value stream consultant. That's another uh, certification that they're currently coming up with. Okay, so yeah, my suggestion is, probably you want to look at becoming a DA practitioner or a DLSM. DLSM has really good value in the market.
Thank you, Rahul. The next question is Agile related to systems approach to project management in any way?
All right. Okay. Systems approach. I'm not quite sure what you mean by a system-based approach as such, but yes, it's a different approach. It's an approach where you
So,
feel that.
so it's Agile related to systems approach to project management. That's what she means.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, frankly speaking, I don't want to bring in the term as project management. It looks very, I think these days we always talk about why don't we think about products and services that we're building rather than projects, right? So, and agile is, especially if you think of any of the agile methods, also we have all started talking about, product increments, product deliveries, right? So I won't say necessarily it's a project management kind of a framework or that kind of stuff, but yes, you can say that it's a framework that can help you improve your agile way of working. Agile, your agile knowledge, you can say, right? I think that's what I would like to put it at this point.
Thanks, Rahul. Are Agile and Scrum mutually exclusive, or can they complement each other?
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you look at agile is a kind of a mindset. It's like a it's like a philosophy, you can say. So it's like a wider umbrella, a domain, you can say. All right, maybe if that's what helps you to understand it, right? So, and within agile, we have different frameworks, different methods. Scrum being one of them. You have all other ones, right? Like you have Kanban, you have scaled agile, you have less. I think one of my slides actually showed some of them. There are many more to that. Okay, so they are not the only ones. So if you think of it, right, agile is like an overarching umbrella, an overarching philosophy or mindset, and based on that mindset, okay, based on the manifesto and the principles that agile talks about, right, and it's more of a iterative and incremental approach, towards product deliveries. And based on that mindset, I would say we have this different different frameworks like Scrum, right? I hope that helps you to understand. It's not like agile and Scrum are two different things. It's like Scrum could be, if it helps you to understand that way, Scrum could, you may say, okay, Scrum is a subset of agile. Okay, if that helps you to understand. Um, all right.
Yeah. There's another question which says my understanding of the development life cycles is limited to waterfall and agile, under which comes Scrum, Kanban, extreme programming, etc. Is disciplined agile a third way of SDLC? And uh, does it have its own development methodologies and frameworks like Agile has, or is it part of Agile itself?
Okay. All right. Yes. So disciplined agile in itself is also a framework. We do offer it as a completely new framework to work with. It works in its entirety. Where we have seen it has been adopted at companies like Barclay, Franklin Templeton. They were doing something before. They said, okay, I think we have done enough of that. Let's move to DA. Okay, so DA in itself can be applied. DA in itself is a framework, and I think if you look at that square onion ring, that diagram that I showed you, we do have a concept around, what the teams can do, what we can do at the DevOps level, what we can do at the complete IT level, and what we can do at the enterprise level, isn't it? So that's why, it can very well be applied on itself, a kind of a separate framework or, completely new framework you can think about, or you can also combine it with, in any of the existing things. I hope I would like to put it that way at this point in time, because I mean there sometimes people feel that, yeah, I mean we have been talking about DA as a toolkit, so is it like I just pick the things from DA and apply to Scrum or Safe or anything like that? You can do that way as well, or maybe you can say, okay, let's start with DA now. So yeah, both ways you can say.
Great. I think that is pretty much the sort of questions we have so far.
All right.
We have about 5-10 minutes more in case you all have any questions. Meanwhile, thank you to all of you who've given good feedback, and thank you for all kinds of feedback. We will definitely take them for the next webinar. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and Rahul, a lot of people thanking you for the webinar, for conducting this,
All right. Thank you.
and for taking the time out to explain, give a brief about digital, disciplined agile.
Yep. All right. Yes.
Maybe we'll give it a couple of minutes more to see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I think we're good to, move.
Sure.
Okay, there's actually one more question, which says, SAFe also has 3 layers in framework. How is it different from it, which I'm guessing from DA?
Right. Yes. I think safe currently, if you look at the 5.0 world, they talk about the essential and the solutions and the portfolios, right? So yes, something like portfolio, even DA is talking about. Al Shalaway, his company Net Objectives, which was also brought up by PMI, in last August, that brings in a lot of information around how it can be worked at portfolios. So yes, you will see some similarities between what safe talks about and what some of the things which we are there, because it's not like a completely new science in my opinion, but yes, there are some differences when it comes to the value stream from programs, right? Like for instance, you are talking about essential level safe, right? Again, here at the DA, if you look at the onion ring right at the bottom, we say that teams can start with any of the agile journeys, right? Like an agile life cycle. But at the same time, if you're thinking about programs, we do have a program life cycle. But it's more than that. If you look at it, that approach in safe actually tells you, okay, how to work with multiple teams, scaling up, all such things. And it's absolutely great information. There's nothing wrong with it. But where DA, I would say DA's USP, is why we are doing that, why we are working with multiple groups within an organization. And for us to really achieve a business agility, the process blades is really a game changer, because here any part of the organization can actually look at some of those blades, some of those process goals, right, and try to improve on their way of working. They can also go and apply some of the life cycles which DA is providing, which in my opinion, if you look at safe or even at the standard scrum or kanban, they're very very specific to certain things. It may work very well in IT world, it may not really work well in the business world of things, and that's where in my opinion, DA really brings you. So coming back to your original question of safe and this, yes, you will definitely see some similarities here, but this one is more than that, especially if you look at what's happening at the DAIT level, one of the other layers of DA, you will see a lot of information around continuous improvement, how we can do that, so a different way approach, I would say, from a DA perspective.
Great. Just one more question. Actually, one more question, which is, how is DA more efficient than Scrum, fixed budget projects?
Fixed budget projects, the question is whether DA is more efficient. Well,
how is DA more efficient than Scrum in case of projects with fixed budgets?
right, okay. See, in agile we always talk about that the iron triangle or the golden triangle, where we say that we do say that the cost and your schedule and cost, we fix that, right? So I won't say that with Scrum you will have difficulties. Maybe in Scrum also with fixed cost projects, right? Fixed schedule, fixed cost projects, of course with the changing scope, you can still work with Scrum, where DA, you can also go with DA, you can start with DA, one of the life cycles which DA gives you, so it's just that again, the main difference I would say is Scrum, talks about one life cycle, and may or may not work in your context. Whereas what DA is offering us is, maybe let's look at our current thing. Maybe it may work for certain teams, it may not work for certain teams. Some of the Scrum. That's where I would say DA could certainly help. And again, it's left to the choice of groups. You may still start with Scrum, and if you want to improve on Scrum, look at DA for that matter. So you can go with both ways, I would say.
Thanks, Rahul. I think that covers all now.
All right.
So in case of any questions you all have, you can always send us an email, and I'm sure Rahul will find some time to reply to your questions. We are happy that you all liked the webinar. Thank you again for all the feedback, and thank you for cooperating with us today. Just as a note, I think I would like to mention Rahul's email ID in the chat box, because he's joined in from the other ID. So I'll share his email ID in case you all want to get in touch with him directly. Rahul, can you confirm which ID you'd like for me to share?
I think I can.
R Gujar.
Yes, I can. I'll just give my personal ID because it becomes easier for me that way. Sure. If you want, I'll just put it here. I think I don't know if everyone gets it now.
Okay, you can put in. Yes, you can put in the questions box itself.
Okay, I just put it in chat, but all right.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, it's RGUJ or rgujar@gmail. I don't know where I should put it. I'm not able to figure that part out on questions. Yeah.
No, I've put it, not to worry.
Oh, okay. All right. Fine.
Great. Thank you all so much for attending this webinar. We have more webinars coming up about disciplined agile in the weeks to come. Rahul, thank you so much for taking this webinar for us, and thank you so much for cooperating with the technical glitches and joining in from a different ID. We really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to more webinars with you, Rahul.
Thanks. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Bye-bye.